Hi, Sean.
I talked to you yesterday.
Good. You are fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes.
A great host. Show is great. Listen to his show.
Absolutely, 95.5.
One mic. All I need is one mic. That's all I need.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the Shelley Winter Show. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. What a night. What a night to be on talk radio. Woo. We've got the Epstein emails dumping, the vote coming up. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. But you know what I've got to start with. You know what I got to start with? My dude did it again. My guy telling the truth. And a lot of people on the right don't want to hear the truth. A lot of people on the left don't want to hear the truth, but he's telling the truth. So let me set this up. There's a book that I read years ago. I had a good friend back in the day. His name was Harvey. Harvey fought in Vietnam. And he was in a book called Bloods. I don't even know if it's still in print, but it's called Bloods. An oral account of African Americans in Vietnam. And he was in it, and he gave me the book, and I read it. And it was, actual African Americans that they interviewed and told their stories. Some of them were drafted. Some of them didn't want to be drafted. Some of them were drafted anyway. Some of them volunteered for the Army because they came from military families. But it was an oral account of African Americans in Vietnam during the Vietnam War and who fought in Vietnam. And one of the stories that I will never forget, and it stays with me all the time, and it kind of informs, in a very indirect way, it informs my outlook on race and racism. So one of the oral accounts is from a private, and it tells you, when I tell you the story, it teaches you how racism kills people, how racism destroys, not from the standpoint of hate versus love, but how racism, when you dislike people for silly reasons, color, being from a different country or a different religion, it actually destroys you from within and your culture from within. When you carry around this hate, it ends up impacting you. Here's the story. So the guy was talking about how when African-American soldiers would come off the helicopter, new guys coming into the field, coming into the war, right? They're being deployed. I'm not sure the terminology that they used at the time, but they were new. The other African-American soldiers that had been there for a while, they would tell them different things, different tips on how to stay alive, right? Because the white officers tended to be very racist. And so what the soldier said, they would tell the African American soldiers that were coming into the field, they would tell them certain tips, and one of the tips they told them was always volunteer for the point or the rear. Always volunteer for the point or the rear, right? And so the lieutenants and these officers and the racist, officers at that time would always laugh and talk about how stupid these African-American soldiers were because they all volunteered for the point and the rear. Well, what their racism didn't recognize was that the Vietnamese weren't stupid. They knew that a guy wasn't wandering the jungle by himself. So when they would see a soldier by himself, they knew he was at the point. So they would let him go by. And then they'd open fire on the middle. And then the guy at the rear was in the rear. He pretty much was safe as well. And so this is what they learned over experience, and they shared it with each other because the racism of the officers, they weren't going to share with everybody. So because of the racism and the hatred. And I tell that story all the time to teach people that when you hate for silly reasons and you dislike people because they're from India or China or other places, or their religion is Islam, or their religion is Buddhism or something like that, you are destroying yourself. And let me play for you what Donald Trump said, because it all ties together.
When these things open up,
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean-
Republicans have to talk about it
And
later.
does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of
I
thousands
agree,
of foreign
but
workers.
you also do have to bring in talent. When
Well, we
a
have
country
plenty of talented people
No, you
here.
don't. No, you don't.
We don't have talented
You're being-
people here?
No, you don't have. You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How
you
did we
in-
ever do it before?
Well, let me
When you
just,
and I were
I'll give you
growing
an
up.
example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made
Hyundai.
batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
So, first of all, let's address what Laura Ingraham said. When she says something, when he talked about you can't pull people off the employment line and build a missile, she says, well, it happened when we were kids. No, it didn't. You have guided missiles today are like cars. They're nothing but computers. You're not slapping a lid on a stick of dynamite and putting it on a plane. You have people flying drones from 1,000 miles away, dropping a bomb, a guided missile from and flying that drone and dropping a guided missile 2,000 miles away from where from where the guy is that's flying the drone. You don't just step off the street and get that job. And Trump talking about the Hyundai plan here. He's absolutely right. Or the battery plan here. He's absolutely right. You're not just taking a widget, sticking it in a battery, and moving it down a conveyor belt. These are electric batteries. It's a complicated thing. And the people who developed the technology for those electric batteries are here to train the workers. And in our America First, very racist idea of what we want here, they ran all the Koreans out. Now, by the way, they're filing a lawsuit against us here. All 500, 400 of them. But do you understand my point? Those people were here to train Georgia workers in how to build these batteries. You couldn't just walk in off the street and get that job. And in our short-sightedness, we jumped up and down and ran them out. That's the first thing to what she said. But here's the bigger point. Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, tech companies have been saying the same thing. We don't have the talent. Donald Trump is absolutely right. We don't have the talent. You know why we don't have the talent in this country? Because our education system stinks. Now, Republicans should know this because you've been screaming for the last 30 years for school choice. Why? Because education sucks. So now all of a sudden, we've got the talent. Where? If our schools stink and we need school choice because our schools stink and our test scores are low because we need school choice, then where's the talent coming from? You can't have it both ways. And you Democrats who think, let's let in millions of illegal immigrants because they'll do the jobs we won't do. But you've never really thought about the African-American high school graduate who needed that job. You never thought about the white rural worker who needed that job. You just wanted to fill these jobs because they're jobs we wouldn't do. Now, all of a sudden, your friends are impacted by the H-1B visas, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, Mr. President. We have the talent. Now you care about the workers? Daily Beast, MSNBC, CNN, now you care? You didn't care about the low workers. Now you care about the high-end workers now. Everybody's lying through their teeth, all because it's Donald Trump. Either they love him or they hate him or whatever. The man was telling the truth. And I'm hearing people talk about, well, he should have been more nuanced. Donald Trump has never been nuanced. Since he came down the golden staircase, since when has Donald Trump ever been nuanced? And there's no nuance here. It's true. There are certain areas and certain industries where we need workers. Why? Because our education system is the worst. Not in the worst in that at the bottom, but it's the worst of developing countries. Our kids are not smart, period. End of story. Our people are mediocre. You know, it's like when he said the black jobs. Well, in this case, Donald Trump, and it's why MAGA is so mad, and I get it. If you're being called mediocre as a white American worker, you're being called mediocre by your president. Yeah, I'd be mad too. But if this is the reason why, we've got Mr. Trump, he's going to ruin the midterms, Republicans are going to flee, the base is going to flee. Well, if this is going to make you flee, you've been ignoring the last several months. Fact of the matter is, this is the white jobs comment from Donald Trump. And I knew what he meant when he talked about black jobs and African Americans got mad. And I fully understand what he meant when he said we don't have any talent. I fully understand it. We're mediocre, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump's telling you we're mediocre, and we're not going to fix it tomorrow. So we've got to bring in other people that are more talented than we are. The truth hurts, but it doesn't make it not the truth. This was Donald Trump's black jobs comment for the white folks. 404-872-0750. 1-800-WSB-TALK. It's the Shelley Winter Show.